All right, here we are at yet another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies. I've said that intro 417 times as of today.
How does he do it?
All right, Peter, podcast number 417. And the title of today's podcast is How Creative Real Estate Can Be More Than Just a Side Gig. I shall repeat it. How creative real estate can be more than just a side gig. Here's the description. And I just want to forewarn you before I start today, I'm a little fired up about this podcast.
Oh, God.
So I'm going to apologize for any of my passion and feelings and yelling and screaming or anything that I might do to wake people up because I'm really passionate about today.
Okay, I'm going to count the rants today. I'm going to count them.
Okay. You do that. In fact, what you could do is you could give those rants, the number of rants to my wife, and she'll be like, yeah, that's nothing compared to spending a weekend with Bill.
Oh, man.
Here we go. This is the description. Psst. Want to know the real reason that neighbor or person you know just quit their job and works from home? Hint, it's got nothing to do with the stock market, crypto, selling stuff online. In fact, it's so sneaky and simple, you will kick yourself for not figuring it out sooner. We're talking about regular folks, just like you, who've stumbled upon a little-known loophole in the real estate world. And that's letting them pocket massive paydays without a fancy license, any experience, money, credit, setbacks, training, risk, or hunting for motivated sellers by just using 30 minutes of your day doing the exact things to make money. In fact, this is how most will crack the code and make it more than just a side gig. Close deals like a pro, even if you have never done it before. Help sellers and buyers in ways that will make you a hero. Curious? You should be, because what we are about to cover could turn your world upside down. Ready to dive into the newest creative real estate strategy no one knows about yet? Listen now, and your future you will thank you later.
The future you. I like that.
Well, thank you later.
Yeah.
That was from one of Ben Hardy's books. All right. Now I got myself a cup of tea going here, and we are ready. We're going to do housekeeping first.
Okay.
So we record this podcast on Thursday mornings, Eastern Standard Time at 9:30 a.m. And when we record it, we live stream it onto YouTube, two YouTube places, Flipping Houses for Rookies and Creative REI Reply. So you can go to either one of those YouTube channels. We also live stream it on Facebook on Flipping Houses for Rookies or LinkedIn, which is William Hawthorne. You go to any one of those platforms and you can watch the podcast live by just typing in any one of those words I just told you about. And you can ask questions from those platforms, wherever they allow you to type, pertaining to the podcast. If you have a question that doesn't pertain to the podcast, then I will have to decline answering you. I apologize for that because we have an agenda. And as it is, I talk too much already and have trouble staying within the hour. So I will answer those questions if you send me a support ticket at flippinghousesforrookies.com. Top right-hand side of the screen, there's a support button, or you can go on to WhatsApp Messenger and search for Let's Talk Real Estate and join the group. There's about 100 and something people in there. It's like a mastermind group, just like what Napoleon Hill talked about in Think and Grow Rich. Okay?
Yep.
So I think that's about it. I'm going to announce today now, and I will, I forgot. Make sure you subscribe to us and make sure you follow us. Make sure you leave us a comment. Make sure you let us know how we're doing. And then I'm going to announce today, this is a big announcement for me, and I'm going to announce it at the end too. We have 417 podcasts. They are all free with lots of data. If you've enjoyed the free data, wait till you hear our new private podcast. So we're going to be making private podcasts on specific topics. So you can go in and they are going to be more like step-by-step checklist type stuff. It's going to be, so in this podcast, we have constantly tried to change your way of thinking about real estate. We haven't tried to change what you do. And the private podcast is more like things that you do. We're going to help you with that, with the doing this aspect of creative area and the doing this aspect of how to do creative real estate deals. So I'm in the midst of working furiously, and I mean that by no joke, on doing that. So as soon as we get that ready, hopefully in the next couple of podcasts, we will start releasing those links so you guys can go check it out. Okay? So that's my little spiel for today. Let's get down to the podcast.
Okay, here we go.
So Pete, today I'm going to explain to our listeners how to do creative real estate deals consistently without money, credit, setbacks, training, risk, or a fancy license. Are you ready for that?
No, that sounds good. You hit all the buttons.
Okay.
You just missed one. You just missed one from sitting on my couch.
Oh.
But let's not get completely ridiculously lazy. Let's get some work done.
From behind my desk, I'm going to add that.
Okay. Okay. That's more realistic.
In fact, it almost eliminates having to find motivated sellers to do creative real estate with. I've been preaching that for a long time. Get the right creative real estate seller, you get a motivated seller, and you could do a deal, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter about your training. The person's so motivated, they'll let you make mistakes. You don't have to be a professional. I've done hundreds of deals. You just tell them the truth, and they'll let you do it, as long as it's a good solution for you. Right?
That's right.
Excuse me. But today I'm telling you that we have figured something out, and I'm going to tell you about it today. So here's my point in the motivated sellers. Every seller is motivated to sell a house. I mean, when you put a house on the market, it's not like, oh, I'm gonna write a book and put it on Amazon, and then people just come and buy it, or write a song and sing it and record it, and people are just going to listen to it. You know, it's not that way. It's not like, or more importantly, affiliate marketers. Affiliate marketers just use somebody else's content and they just promote it, right?
Yeah.
When you sell a house, it's a major thing. It's a major commitment, especially if you're living in the house, right? Because you have to move out, you have to find another place to live, and then there's the whole process of selling. In other words, it's not an easy thing. It's months and months of work. Months and months, sometimes longer than that, of work. A lot of work. Not just like, oh, one weekend we're going to do this and then we're going to be somewhere else. It's not that.
Right.
For most. So that means if somebody has a house for sale, they've been through that in their mind and they know it's a lot of work. So the fact that they put the house for sale, they're motivated for something. Right? But With our other strategies that we're not talking about today, right? We're usually looking for a flexible seller who will do deals the way we want them to do deals, right?
Right.
So we're looking for certain criteria depending on which type of deal strategy it is. And we're looking for those indicators so we can say, okay, here's what I can do. And then give them the ideas or the solutions based on that deal structure.
Right.
Because each deal structure has its own solutions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it depends on what the person's saying to you, the seller saying to you, on which solution you're going to propose to match their problem.
Yeah.
Right. But what if we gave them everything they wanted and still made money? Because they're motivated already, right? So what if we gave them everything they wanted?
Yeah. That'd be good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if that was the case, we wouldn't have to be digging around like why is selling or what trouble are you having. They can't sell it maybe at all without some creative aspect to it. Maybe they can't sell it on the market, but you don't find those all the time.
So if we did this and just gave them what they wanted and didn't have to do what Peter was just talking about, like find their situation and have all these sales skills and questions and scripts and like study human behavior, I'm going to tell you point blank. I think I said it last week or the week before in podcast. It was a by the way comment.
Mm-hmm.
We're not in the real estate business. We're not in the document business.
Mm-hmm.
We're not in the marketing business.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's excelled me as I study human beings and emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking about psychology either, because I believe that if you're going to study something, you have to study something that gets favorable results. And a favorable result is it helps the most amount with the most amount of problems for the longest times,
Mm-hmm.
for the longest period.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it helps the greatest amount of people with the greatest good, with the greatest amount of time involved. And that's what I like to study, is those sustaining, long-term, core principles that are nice and easy to remember. And that's what you do. But that's my life. That's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why is because I'm a marketer. I started out as a marketer. I want to do direct mail, which I'm kind of changing my mind about that right now. But I have some other ideas I'm working on. But the point is that people, understanding people, if you study people, and I mean just observe them, like in our particular case, if we study the buyers and we know what the buyers want, and I'm going to cover this in a little while, but if we study the buyers and how a buyer reacts and what motivates the buyer, then we're aces with the seller, because we know what we can do, because the buyer has told us already what we're going to do.
Hey, you know what's funny? Myself, and probably a lot of people think the seller's in control because they have the house, right? They got the house, they call the shots. But they don't, because the buyer is the one who calls the shots because they got the money. They're the ones who's going to say yes or no and walk away or buy the property.
Dan Kennedy taught me a very, 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 very valuable lesson a long time ago, decades ago. Mm-hmm. I remember when I first started, I wrote a sales letter. It took me weeks to write this sales letter. I mean, weeks and weeks and weeks.
Wow.
And I drafted it. It was a 4-page sales letter. And I gave it to my wife. I was reading it out loud, and 2 paragraphs in, she launched on me. I don't want to listen to this. This has nothing. I don't want to. And she was totally disinterested.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, what the hell did I do wrong?
Yeah.
And here's what I did wrong. Dan Kennedy taught me, you listen to the people that vote with their wallet. She was not my clientele that I was writing to.
Oh, yeah.
She was not the person that was going to buy the product that I was selling. She did not have those ruins or problems or situations, or was laying awake at night looking for the solution that I had.
Yep.
So it taught me a very valuable lesson. Later in life, I'm off script now, but later in life, what happened was I ended up I was on the road for 45 weeks a year, and we had a seminar, and we sold consulting to automotive repair shops.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a guy there that I worked with. His name was Robbie, and everybody bowed down to Robbie's feet. He was like a god. And I started to make friends with him. We were both in the same position, right? We were both consultants, right?
Sure.
And I thought, wow, this guy's a little eccentric, right? He's a good guy, but it's like, wonder what makes him a hero. Well, he'd been with the company for 20 years, and when I found out, God, a year later, it took me forever to figure it out. He pre-qualified who he talked to. And his saying was, if there's a little spark, I pour gasoline on it to make the fire. And I couldn't understand that. I didn't know what that means. But what he was a genius at pre-qualifying. Who he talked to, who he shared his ideas with, who he pitched to, who he helped.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty interesting, right? Anyways, off topic.
Well, okay.
Go ahead.
Well, there's no sense talking to somebody who's a definite no.
Right.
And no matter what you say, I can't, I won't, and I just don't like, a real fat negative no matter what. Like, why waste your time?
Totally. All right. If we give the seller everything they wanted and we still make money, do you think you could make more deals? See, I know many of our listeners have heard or even tried to make gargantuan profits with real estate. But when they went to implement the work, quote unquote work, there is struggle and a lot of money spent, with countless hours studying that take away from their families and their freedom and their time, so they can't do what they want to do. In other words, too many hours of hard work with no results until today. Well, we've, which is more like me, I'll say that, I've made a breakthrough, because for the last several months, I've been quietly testing a new approach to making creative real estate transactions. And it's super easy to do, super easy to learn, because you already know how to do it. And it has incredible results. End the podcast.
Tune in next week for
Bill's,
$19.95, and you will learn.
That's Bill's hardcore English dry bad humor.
Yeah, funny.
Yeah,
it's really funny.
No, it's not funny. It's funny to me, but not everybody else. Okay, so here's what I want you to do right now. Are you ready? I want you to do this right now. So wherever you are listening to us, give yourself the next couple minutes to do this. And you don't need anything except just to pay attention to what I'm doing. Just don't be distracted. If you're answering emails or typing on your computer or whatever you're doing, just give me your undivided attention for the next couple of minutes. And it could change your life. So here's what I want you to do right now. I want you to think about this. When a seller uses a realtor system, they have to sign a 6-month agreement, right? A contract with the realtor.
Sure.
Otherwise, the realtor doesn't work for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then once the contract is signed, the realtor posts this listing on their MLS, their multiple listing service, and they're looking for a buyer. Now, fortunately, NAR, the National Association of Realtors, has gotten smart about this because realtors only post it on the MLS. So nowadays, which they're getting sued for, by the way, nowadays they have a company called value.com, which is either an owner or a high stakes owner in sites like Redfin, Trulia, Realtor.com, all those, they're in Zillow's pocket, right? All these sites. So what they're doing now is at least with with those sites, they're disseminating, or they are promoting to more than just the MLS looking for buyers.
Yeah. What
they're getting sued for, by the way, is they are holding the prices in the market up, so they have higher commissions, and that's called a monopoly and racketeering, and they're getting sued for that by the United States government.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, anyways, so I have to stop diverting. So when the seller uses a realtor system, they have a 6-month contract that they're asked to sign. Once they get the 6-month contract, the realtor then puts it on the MLS and starts looking for a buyer. With me?
Oh, sure. Sure.
A buyer finds this property, usually online these days, or maybe a sign if they drive by. It's not. It used to be signs was their biggest things, but now it's online.
Yeah.
And the buyer inquires about the property. Right?
Well, because it's not. If it was just on the MLS, folks can't see that. Only realtors can, right? As far as just the MLS.
Right.
But because they have Redfin, Trulia, Zillow, anybody can see the houses.
Right.
So they're shopping for the houses themselves.
Right.
Duh.
Right. So then once the buyer goes to look at the house or look at the property, they do their due diligence, right? They go online and search. Most of them search for things like crime and sexual assaults and school systems and grocery stores. And like, is this a place I want to live? If they don't know the area, if they know the area, then they're already good. But more importantly, they decide this is how much I'm going to pay.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Well, they've been looking at houses, how much they are. They're doing their own kind of comps. They're looking around.
So why did they decide this is how much they're going to pay? Because they've done their due diligence. If they've been in the house and it has a cracked foundation, or if it has a bad roof or something like that, so they're going to know, and they're going to adjust their price according to.
Right. It's true.
And by the way, if they miss anything, there's an inspection. Right? And the inspection adjusts the price.
Yeah.
So the due diligence is done by the buyer. Agreed?
It is.
So now that all that's done from the buyer picks the price. And now the next step is they go back to the realtor with that offer, and they get it in writing. So they go from a verbal agreement to in writing.
Yep.
Now the realtor takes that offer that's in writing, which most of the times it's a purchase and sales agreement, but not always. Right? So they take that offer they got from the buyer, and the realtor puts it on paper. In other words, they ink the deal. That's what we call inking the deal. Right? Is they put it in writing, and they bring it back to the seller. Right? At that point, the seller says yes, no, or they adjust the offer. Right?
Yeah. Well, the seller can't force the buyer to do something they're not willing to do. They can try, but the buyer can just walk away. So they're in control more than anything.
Right? So Once both buyer and seller agree to how this transaction is going to happen, from the buyer's due diligence and what the buyer's willing to do, pay, all that kind of stuff, right? The realtor drafts the exact document, which is a purchase and sales agreement, and they get it signed by both parties.
Mm.
The purchase and sales agreement is the roadmap for the closing. It tells everybody what the agreement is between the buyer and seller, and if we're going to have a successful closing, we have to supply the agreements on the purchase and sales agreement to get to a healthy closing.
And that's what the closing agent or attorneys do. They look at all that and they execute all those points.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really know what to do unless we tell them, and it's all there.
Right.
And they follow it.
So we're taking a verbal agreement, putting it in writing, and we're getting everybody to sign it, right? Then the closing happens. And at the closing, the realtor gets a 5 to 6% of the sales price commission.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it works. Do we agree on that?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, realize this happens or has been happening for 75 plus years with the realtor system. It's just a machine. Many have gone in and out of it. I know realtors that are multimillionaires because they do this. I know realtors that did 1 or 2 deals and got out. Right? But, and this is a big but. Now, the word but means everything that I just said before it got erased. The word but means everything I said before the word but is now officially erased. That's what the word but does.
Mm.
But in October 2023, the Realtors Association, known as NAR, National Association of Realtors,
Mm-hmm.
were sued and lost for having strict commissions for their sellers, but also having to pay the buyer agent a commission. So it was a class action suit by 250,000 homeowners in one state. I think it was, I forgot what it was,
Kansas or somewhere.
St. Louis or something like that, right? And they lost. Now the Realtor Association has a whole bunch of rebuttal to this, saying, well, it's sick that only 8 people can control their destiny, meaning the jury. Right? But the point is they lost $1.78 billion. Now, we actually have a podcast on this. I should go back and find the number, but I didn't. We actually have a podcast on this because that's just the beginning. Because the National Federal Trade Commission, which is a government entity, has investigated the realtor system in the Obama administration, in the Trump administration, and now the Biden administration. And all 3 investigations come down to racketeering and monopoly. And those lawsuits are supposed to be coming. Now, that's all speculative, but they're not done yet.
Yeah.
The fact that 1 lawsuit was lost means there's more to come.
Mm-hmm.
Right? However, just to prove my point here, is that lawsuit that was lost for $1.78 billion was settled for $418 million. Now, you don't put up $418 million and be innocent. Not in my world. Okay? But in the settlement of the $418 million, they promise, or by law, have to no longer force these fees on sellers and buyers like before.
Mm.
That was supposed to happen in July, which now I'm hearing it's in August. So the fee structure is supposed to change. I think what's happening is they're not actually changing the fee structure. They're just leaving it up to the buyers and the sellers to say, I'm not paying 5% commission.
Mm.
And they're not making it mandatory. Well, like, because before it was like, well, if you don't pay 5%, I can't list it.
Well, it's one thing that you pay 5%. When I bought my house, it was $40,000. What's 5% of $40,000? $2,000?
Right.
Okay. All right. So they did a few weeks of work. They got $2,000 or got the grand. Fine. But now it's a $400,000 or $500,000 house. So how do they need $25,000 to do basically the same amount of work?
Right.
Which is waiting for someone to show up to buy the house. They don't even have to go find the guy. They just wait till somebody show up. So the percentage thing, it's a little crazy.
So it's adding value. Added value. Their added value is not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
So so my point is win, lose, or draw. Believe me or not believe me, I'm not asking you to do that. I am telling you, as of this podcast, things are changing. The world is different. And if you don't believe anything I just said to you about the realtor, then just take a look at the fact in 2020, we shut down the world for COVID for 1.5 years. And things have never been the same since.
Mm.
Government has not been the same. Taxes have not been the same. Inflation's not been the same. And real estate and stock market have not been the same. So just observe that and you'll know that I'm right.
Yeah,
things are changing.
Much business, including real estate, has gone online. Businesses just working from home, looking things up at the computer, buying things on the computer.
Right.
Virtual.
All right. So now I need you to do this. So we got through the first part of this. I need you to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I want you to think about this in comparison to what we just talked about. Ready?
Yep.
Could you easily get an asking price from your seller and make more deals if you didn't have to negotiate, if you didn't have to use deal structuring, if you didn't have to have any what they call alternative ideas like taking payments and all that kind of stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Could you make more deals if you just agreed with what the seller wanted, just like what the realtor does?
I mean, instead of fighting with the seller, say, yes, I can do that.
And we talked about that in the last podcast, because that's where this is coming from, right?
Yeah.
Last podcast.
416.
Yeah, let me pull it up. Give me 1 second.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, instead of like arguing with people like, well, I can't do that, but I can do this. They ask for something and we go over it a little and we say yes.
So the pre-qualifying steps I gave in podcast number 416 was 1, identify their needs. 2, select the right solution for them.
Mm-hmm.
3, then demonstrate how you can help them solve their problem. 4, then you kick in the hard sell and use conviction by getting them to take action. So a hard sell means that you know your solution is the best thing for them, and you're going to do everything you can to get them to understand that. It's not slick salesman type stuff.
It's not being pushy and forceful.
Right. It's just getting them to look, right? And number 5, make sure your exchange is felt by the seller in abundance. And they would feel foolish if they said no. It's what we call the Ritz-Carlton service aspect, not the Holiday Inn aspect. Right? That was in podcast number 416. Okay. So is it possible you could easily get your asking price or give them their asking price and have them say, yeah, I'll do that?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what they're asking for.
Then once you agree to their asking price, then just fill out a 1-page document that they should sign and lock in a deal, right? Now, the difference is we're going to sign this one-page document that's only 90 days.
Mhm.
The listing agreement with the realtor is going to be 6 months. The listing agreement with the realtor has a lot of clauses in it these days on not being able to break that.
Mhm.
So once they're in, it's like they're in
It's like they own the house.
it's it's like they're in a prisoner of war camp. You know what I mean? They just got to do what they're told, right? Yeah,
it's your house.
Yeah, it's like they own the house and they're controlling it, right? With our document, they can cancel anytime they want, and it doesn't cost us anything. All right, so after they sign this document, we list it for sale.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, we covered this on podcast number 414. You go there, and there's 101 ways we can sell a house, or 101 places that we can go sell a house. Now, disclosure, the internet changes all the time. So if you go on there and there's some links that don't work or whatever, that's fine. But maybe there's 5 links or 10 links that don't work or none. But you still have 101 ways. So there's plenty of ways to sell a house.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least advertise it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, here's the amazing part to me. Did the realtor, so now you got the house for sale, right? So the house is out there, it's what we call bringing it to the market. We have it out there and we're proposing it to potential buyers.
Yep.
Okay. Did the realtor need to know deal structuring on how to make the offer?
No. He didn't need motivation. What's your problem? It's just how much.
You don't need any of that, right?
No, it's like going to the meat market and the guy says, "What do you want?" It's a steak. Here you go. Doesn't ask why. What do you need it for?
It's a great example, Peter.
How hungry are you?
That's a great example, Peter. I've been looking for an analogy. That's it. That's a perfect analogy.
How many people do you have to feed?
Right.
What if you don't buy the right cup? Will they argue? No, they don't
Right.
have to do that.
So the seller asks for a price,
Mm-hmm.
and you say, "Yeah, I'll do that." There's no skill there at all. You don't now. Will you develop skill? Yes, we're going to talk about that in a minute. But to get this deal, and the punchline is yet to come here in a few minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Another question I have for you. Did the realtor need to do any due diligence on the house or the neighborhood? So let's say, now I'm proposing this a little bit early here, but let's say you have a realtor that's in New Haven, Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we're from. So where are they licensed?
Connecticut.
Where? No, they're not licensed in Connecticut.
Oh, just the county, actually, right?
Yeah, they're in New Haven County.
Realtors work county by county. That's true.
In some states in Connecticut, we have that, right?
Yeah.
So they're licensed in their backyard, right?
So, yeah. So they can't. So what happens if this house out of their county? Is that a problem?
Yeah, they have to get a realtor in that. Well, I don't know how that works. Maybe it is Connecticut. Yeah. Maybe you're right. Maybe it is.
Well, I know that in different counties you could have different details as far as the paperwork might be different contract.
You know what? You're right, Peter. That's what it is. So they're licensed in Connecticut, but their MLS is in New Haven.
Right, and they have different contracts.
Yeah.
Within reason.
Yeah.
Okay.
But my point is can they go outside of Connecticut?
That's the problem. No.
So how does a realtor do deals virtually outside of Connecticut?
Mm.
This system I'm telling you about right now is it. You came up with 3 words. What are they?
Oh, National Virtual Realtor.
There you go. And we're going to teach people how to be a national virtual realtor very soon.
Mm.
Okay? Because of this system. But let's just keep talking to our rookies right now because I want you to see how big this is. This is big. Okay? So the realtor does know due diligence, right?
Mm.
The buyer doesn't.
Right. Well, yeah. Yeah. Well, the usual thing is the realtor, if 5 realtors show up, they give different numbers that they're going to sell the house for. Well, I'll sell it for this. And the seller's going to pick the guy that says the biggest number. What does he do for due diligence? Nothing. But if people come in and say they won't pay that, he just drops the price.
Right.
That says reverse due diligence. He just drops the price. So blah. He just changes it right then and there.
Okay, so I don't have time to do this because I could do a whole podcast on this. But suppose you were a real estate investor and you're thinking about doing virtual deals, and you're like, rah, 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 I want to do deals in my backyard first because I want to know. Rah, rah. And the reason why you're saying that is because you want to go through the learning process with a property that's drivable,
right?
Or you can get to easily, so you can arm's length manage it, right? And so you don't lose money.
Yeah.
But what if you proposed? What if you listen to my proposal today, and all of a sudden you decide you're in New York, and you decide you want to do deals in Pennsylvania?
Uh-huh.
If you do what I'm talking about, if you get a house under contract, like I'm talking about, which is an option agreement, right? If you get a house under contract and you post it online and you let the buyers do your due diligence, after a while, you're going to learn that farm market. That farm market is going to be taught to you through the buyers.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to get more and more comfortable doing deals in that area, which, by the way, if you use an option agreement and do what I'm going to show you today, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't like the properties, or if you don't like what's going on, you just pull out.
Yeah, because you're not buying it. You just have the option to purchase, not the commitment.
You have the
You're
right
not buying it. You're
That's
not
right.
signing deeds. You're not buying it. You're not borrowing money. It's just an option, which is our version of what the realtor does. It's like
Right.
a
So the
listing
realtor, that's right, Peter. So the realtor now has the buyer's due diligence, the buyer's offer, the buyer's price, what the buyer's willing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So now, doesn't the buyer give the realtor everything they need to make a good offer?
Oh, yeah. They'll tell them what they're willing to do. Realtor gets it.
Right. Wouldn't it make sense that once you talk to a few buyers, you'll get the entire scene in that farm market? So you know if it's a good area or not,
Mm-hmm.
which means now when you're talking to your seller, you're confident and know what to do because the buyers have indoctrinated you or oriented you or told you all the good, bad, and the ugly.
Mm-hmm.
Could we now bring these buyer offers back to the seller and have them say yes, no, or adjust the offers if we did it this way?
Sure.
And make a deal? Then once both the parties have agreed, we can draft up our documents, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we need to close, the exact documents we need to close.
Sure.
And at the closing, couldn't we collect 5% to 10% or more if we negotiated some? We're talking about if you give them their asking price. What if we got a 5% discount or 10% discount and then sold for 5 or 10% above market value? Now there's much more than a 10% profit. Now there's a 20% profit or more. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So if we were to use our system, just like the realtor uses their system, it's the same thing. It's just that I've never been able to clearly explain it to you like I am today. Right?
Well, we're both middlemen, obviously. We sit between and stand between and work between a buyer and a seller. But, we'll make a list one day. Similarities, and you have it, the similarities.
I already made it.
Oh, you did? Okay, good. Because so what's the difference between what we do and they do?
Right.
That's the whole story. All right, good.
Okay. So a couple things, now that I've explained that, so I don't get bombarded with support tickets.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Number one, there's actually, I think 3 or 4 points over there.
Mm-hmm.
The seller's the seller is prepared for a 5 or 6% commission with the realtor.
Yeah.
So when we call for sale by owners and we ask them, do you know what the closing costs would be for your house? And I'm talking hundreds and hundreds of phone calls. It's more than that, but that we have made, you and I have made hundreds of phone calls. They always say, well, yeah, closing costs are 5 to 6%. Because they think that's what the real quick costs. And they're trying to save that 5 or 6%.
Yeah.
So they already think they are already thinking with that 5 or 6%. So you can get that from them in a form of a discount. So it's not hard to get a 5 or 10% discount, right? Plus, if you use our scripts, you can get a 10 to 15% discount if you use our scripts, because it's just common sense, because it's the closing cost.
Right. But since that always happens when people sell houses, that figure that we come up with is actually what they're going to get as the asking price when it's all said and done, no?
Right.
That's the real number.
Right. So my point is that they are not going to pay that 5%. We're going to get our get our buyer to pay that 5%. So they're just going to give us a 5% discount. So to your point, on a $400,000 house, right? 5% is 20 grand.
Yeah.
They're going to pay way more than that. I mean, if they're for sale by owners, 10%, that's 40 grand.
Yeah, that's right.
And if they're going to do it with the realtor system, it could be as much as 60 grand.
Yep.
They don't know that. Number 2, the seller doesn't want to do a discount. Okay. So I'm doing this in a webinar I'm building right now, right? It's either need or greed.
Right.
They need to sell, or they're selling because they want the money.
Yeah.
So number 2, if the seller doesn't want to give you this 5% or 6% discount, they're greedy.
Oh, yeah.
Or they're just over leveraged on the property and can't, because they got to come out of pocket with money and they don't want to.
Yes.
So we call it our Grand Slam offer. We've made other podcasts about this. We call it internally GSO, Grand Slam offer. So we use the GSO, or the Grand Slam offer script, and show them how they can get up to 70% above market value for the property if they just wait 36 months to cash out. This is the offer that we got this from Alex Hermosi's book, $100 Million Offer. I read the book 5 years ago. Matter of fact, I just ordered the workbook. It's a workbook now.
Oh man,
we got this order, and I stole his Grand Slam offer language. If you're curious, right? And and he says, make offers so ridiculous. No, what is it? How to make offers so they feel stupid saying no. Right? So we make offers so they feel foolish to say no. And that's how we do it. We do it with the 70% more than market value, right? So that means a $300,000 house, you're selling it for $400,000 if they wait three years. So how do we know which deal to use? And this is your perfect line, which you gave me a second one yesterday, so I'm going to rely on you in an email you gave it to me.
Yeah, you saw that, huh?
Yeah, the perfect line to pre-qualify which deal to do. What I mean is do just an option with a discount, a 5 or 6 or 10% discount, or do a slot deal, which is a sandwich lease option transfer, which means you get a lease option from your seller and pass it on to your buyer. You pay $100 for the option agreement from your seller, and you sell it to your buyer for 10 or 20 grand. So you're really only buying and selling paper, not buying and selling property, which is why we could do it virtually. Right?
Yep.
So your line is, what is more important to you? Or what is more important for you? Getting your asking price or making more profit? And what was the second one? Do you remember?
Kind of. It was on a piece of paper from years ago. It's like, do you need to sell soon, or could you wait for more money? And
Now
you can
this,
and you can say both of them. You can say the first one because the guy's going to go, "What do you mean? Well, do you have to sell now, or could you wait to make more money?" You could use both of those one after the other because they're going to go, "What?"
that's right.
Right?
So this gives you, excuse me, this tells you whether they are need or greed, right? Upfront.
Mm.
And which deal to propose. Now, let me break this down for you. Greed or want all cash, you get your 5 or 6% discount. Now, this happens all the time, like because I've been listening to coaching clients forever tell me everybody wants all cash. There's nobody that wants to do a terms deal. Terms deal means pay monthly until you're paid off.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
So that's necessity level. And this is the stuff that we've been studying behind the scenes, right? That I'm telling you about.
Yep.
So if you have a seller, which is 97 or 98% of your sellers want all cash, then you're going to get your 5 or 6% discount, preferably 10%. Sign an option agreement with the seller, right? And an option agreement means that the seller's giving you the right to sell, but not the obligation.
Mm-hmm.
So if you find a buyer, you can execute the option. If you don't find a buyer, you can walk away. And it also legally states that you have a very minute, because we give $100 option consideration deposit.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you use legal tender, which means paper money, you could use $1 if your seller is willing to do that. You can use $10 or $20, any denomination. So it's, what is it? Paper money. $1, $5, $10, $20, $50, $100.
Or checks.
Yeah, I'm just saying that you could use any one of those denominations.
Paper.
Anything you want, right?
Yeah.
Point is, you need to consummate the deal with an option consideration deposit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Once you do that, that means you're now a part owner. You're an equity share in this property. Right? Mm-hmm. It's a very minute. You're not a controlling share. You're just a very minute legal share, equity share in this property. And because you are a legal equity share in this property, the law says you're a partner. It doesn't say that you need to be 50% or 30% to be a partner. It just says that both of you have the right to sell the property. So legally, you have the right to sell this property because you're considered an owner.
It reminds me of being a stockholder.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, you have hundreds and thousands of people that have stock in the company. Nobody owns it, but they get to vote on stuff. They get stuff in the paper. You want to vote like that.
That's a great analogy, Peter. That's a great analogy.
Yeah, that's 2 today, Bill. I'm going to go for 3.
Okay. So let me give you an example of this deal structure. House is worth $300,000. They're asking $300,000. Right? In this particular case, you're going to want to get a 5% discount, which is $15,000. They're going to pay that to a realtor anyways. Right? So your option is signed for $285,000. Now here's the magic, in my experience. You advertise the house for $290. You don't advertise it for $300, because then you put it out there for $300. You're like same old with everybody else. Right.
So we have the advantage of having a little lower price.
So by being at $290,000, you're still making $5,000 for your deal, because you got an option for $285 and you're selling for $290. So you still have a $5,000 profit, right? And you're $10,000 under market value.
Sure.
So you get attention. That's how you would do it. That's a greed deal. That's just signing an option. A need deal, or they're over leveraged, or just maybe they don't want a discount. Like I've had free and clear properties where they're just stuck on their price.
Yeah.
Right. So If that's the case, if they're stuck on their price, then we don't try to negotiate price. We go after terms. Like, I'll pay you any price you want as long as I get to pick the terms.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So then we use our Grand Slam offer script and calculator, which, by the way, that link is in today's podcast description. I'm giving you the script and the calculator and everything you need to do this for free. It's the second time I've done it in history, so don't expect to find it anywhere else. We sell this currently for $97 a month. $297, one-time fee, or $97 a month. We sell this script and this calculator for $97 a month right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So don't get it. I don't care. Don't go to the link. If you're driving, you forget it, shame on you. If you don't go click on the link, shame on you. No skin off my nose, because I'm selling it for $97 a month. Okay? You use our Grand Slam offer script and calculator to make them an offer using a lease with an option to buy. So the first one, the greed deal, we're just using an option. On the need deal, we're going to attach, we're still going to use an option, but we're going to attach a lease to it. And show the seller, by waiting for 36 months, they're going to make up to 70% more than market value without being a landlord. Technically, what we're doing is we're turning them into a bank.
Mm-hmm.
And people do not call their banks for maintenance problems. They don't call their bank for toilet problems. They don't call their bank to cut the grass or plow the snow. Right?
Yeah. So this even works with somebody renting property that's starting to get tired of it and wondering how they're going to get out of it someday.
Mm-hmm. We call that a master lease.
Mm-hmm.
This means you'll do a lease option with your seller and transfer it to your buyer for your profit. That's the lease. That's a sandwich. Lease sandwich means you're getting a lease option from your seller, and you're giving it to your buyer, and they're the two pieces of bread, and you're the stuffing in the middle, the roast beef or the peanut butter and jelly, whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So you get this. You get the seller to give you a lease with an option, and you transfer it to your buyer. That also means you're assigning all the responsibilities of being an owner. Like I said, cutting the grass, doing the maintenance, all that stuff. Right? Now, it's important to know the paperwork we use is what makes the seller not a landlord. It's the paperwork we use. So our paperwork is pretty strict. It's not something you can find floating around on the internet. You can get things that are close. But if you don't know someone like me, I'm not the only one with it, but if you don't, and there's very few of us, but if you know someone like me that's willing to share it, then you can do this. So just getting a regular lease is not going to do this on the internet. So getting away with doing the freebie stuff isn't going to work here, right? Now, the important thing is you don't stay in the deal. You're just like the realtor. You find the buyer and get paid for it, and then leave, right? So all this begs the question, and the final point of today's podcast, and the final point of this new strategy, because I've talked about this before, but not as concise as today. The final question begs the final. Yeah. Anyways, you got what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. This begs the question. Today's podcast begs the question: how many options can you get signed and out on the market to turn into profits on a consistent monthly income? Let's say you have 3 of them, or 5 of them, or 10 of them going all at once. Do you think you would have 1 or 2 pop a month for a chunk of dough? Now, I have to tell you that this is not something you need to do full time, especially if you're using Creative REI Replay. And I'm going to go over that in a minute, but Creative REI Replay does all this for you automated. It does everything. It does the whole seller process for you automated. All you're doing is looking at applications or talking to people that want to buy. Your Creative REI Replay completely pre-qualifies all your buyers, does all your paperwork, everything, right?
But your strategy here, this new way of looking, we've talked about it. We kind of danced around it and like got closer and closer. But this solves the problem. I talked to a guy, but I couldn't close him. This kind of solves that problem, where it just raises the percentages way up to get the sellers that we can now make the options for.
And not only that, but the big aha moment is that if realtors want to do this realtor system, which is what we're duplicating. I mean, actually they duplicated us, but we'll leave that alone for now. Okay. But the point is that if you want to become a national virtual realtor, this is how you're going to do it. With a system like Creative REI Reply, you can not only do this deal in Connecticut, but now you can do it in Ohio and Alaska and Hawaii or wherever you want. Because this system, you don't need a license for it, but all your realtor skills could be used. So I'm at the hour and I'm not even close to being done. I got 2 more pages of notes. So we're going to move right along here because I have a few punchlines here.
Oh my, go for it.
So here's the thing to know. You may want to do deals with money now, money monthly, and money later, and not want to do this strategy. And think it isn't for you. And this is very, very, very wrong. By virtue of the outflow alone and talking to sellers all by itself, the subject to deals, the seller finance deals, and the bigger deals like multifamilies and all that stuff will fall in your lap. It happens every single time. Plus, this is key. Now listen to what I'm going to tell you, because this is a twist that you didn't expect. Not from my mouth anyways.
Okay.
What if you had a realtor friend or a relative that's a realtor? Couldn't they do these deals for you? Using your leads, in other words, you bring them leads. In Creative REI Reply, we do this, right? If you get the leads, right? And the realtor, you train the realtor to do this, which is not hard to do, right? So they're going to go after the option agreement or the slot deal, one or the other. If the seller says no, 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 the realtor could then get the listing.
Right.
And you make a deal with your realtor friend that they can do this. Only because now the realtor used our scripts, used our leads, used our calculator, right? Our creative deal thinking, and built rapport with the seller, and now has a higher chance of getting the listing contract because they talked to them like they knew what they were talking about. Because the realtor system does not teach them to negotiate and do all the things that we're talking about.
Right.
So the realtor doesn't lose, right? They either split our commission with us, like we give them a commission for doing this, right? Or they get a listing. And now you have someone working on your leads and only pay them when they bring you a deal, which is what the realtor's used to.
You know what's interesting about that for me is this is the realtor's job. If they're a real realtor, not a part-timer, and they're sitting in the office looking for leads. A lot of us have other jobs and things and commitments, so we do this fairly part-time, right?
And have leads.
And have leads, but we don't always keep up with them that well because it's part-time-ish.
Right.
So you have somebody at the other end that's sitting at the desk looking for leads, and we're busy at work cutting hair or, manufacturing cars or whatever the heck. Say, hey, I got some leads. Can you call them? Because we can't get at it perhaps. So if that's the case, it's like having a virtual assistant that you don't have to pay because they just make the commission at some point. When did that strike you? Because I didn't hear this one out of you. We've been talking every other day.
Wait a minute. We could do a whole podcast on this. So you're worried about doing virtual deals? Why not get a realtor in Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio, that's licensed in Cleveland, Ohio, to do this for you? Now you got boots on the ground automatically. They put up the lock boxes. They'll sell it for you. They already know how to do all this.
And they're trying to do that. And they're usually hustling for deals. And lately, I think they're pretty low on inventory and work. Yeah. They're not doing well. They're like looking for work.
Right. Pretty cool, right?
How do you sleep at night?
Last thing. This final strategy of using a realtor to work with you is assuming you are using our creative REI replay system in a box, right?
And what?
So it's assuming you're using our creative real estate system in a box.
In a box, okay.
Called Creative REI Replay. In this system, you get leads every day. The what I call the mechanical brain or the robot, AI as most people call it, text responses. In other words, we put leads in your account every day and we automatically hook them up to the right campaign depending on what kind of lead they are. So we talk to them correctly. And when they respond, the mechanical mind says, hey, and it answers them just as if I were to answer them in most cases because it's my scripts that it's using, right? And it sets you an appointment to talk to the seller. It also does all this for the buyers. Our buyer system is you pull a phone number from Creative REI Replay, and we show you how to write the ads, and you post the ads on a couple places like avail.com, puts it on 20 different websites, and then they start texting you, and the robot automatically does everything. The mechanical mind does everything for you. And the next thing you know, the only thing you're getting is a text on your phone. A text on your phone saying, "Oh, somebody's at the front door, and they just sent you a driver's license to ask for entry." And that's if the house is vacant. If the house is not vacant, then your realtor can run the open house for an hour and a half. Mm-hmm. Right? It's all done for you. It's all automated already. It's all there. Right? Now, of course, you could do all this manually. And we've explained how to do this manually from podcast number 411 to 414, which is about 3 or 4 hours of loose training. It's talking about what to do, not how to do it, because you're going to have to do some of that research on your own, find the websites and all that kind of stuff. Right? And honestly, for what Creative REI Replay costs, I'm not sure why you would torture yourself the way we had to for the last decade to figure all this shit out. And when I mean torture ourselves is technology keeps changing and we keep adding things and the system keeps getting simpler and simpler to a point now where I think pretty soon you're going to go into AI and say, I want to make $15,000 this week, AI, with a house. Can you go buy it and sell it for me?
Oh, man.
I think it's going to get to that one of these days. Right? All right. So I hope you got a lot out of today. I hope I was clear about this. I hope it turned on some light bulbs, because the point that I'm trying to make today is to do like the realtor, because realtor books, a lot of realtor books are written. The way to be a big, profitable realtor is to get as many listings as possible, put them on the MLS, and it's passive income after that. Like a month from now, you get a closing. 2 months from now, you get a closing. I'm telling you to do the same thing. I'm going to write a book on this. I'm telling you to do the same thing. Get a lot of option agreements from sellers and get them on our MLS, which is Creative REI Replay, we'll say, and get them out there and promote them so you have 5, 6, 8, 10 options always going. If you have a realtor working with you to handle those deals, or an assistant or somebody else or yourself, right? You'll start closing a deal a week, a month, depending on how many of them. If you got 25 options out there, there's no reason why you can't close a deal a week or 2 deals a week, making 5% or 10% of the properties. Getting yourself in the $400,000, $500,000, $1 million a year range, no problem, by just doing this one strategy and needing no training. None. I mean, 1 deal a month is $60,000 a year. 2 deals a month is $120,000. 3 deals a month is $180,000, right? 4 deals a month is $225,000. So 1 deal a week, you're making $225,000 to $250,000 just on this strategy. What about all the other subject to deals and the houses you're going to keep that have money now, money monthly, money later? Because those are going to come. You're going to find those by mistake. Stop focusing on those. Focus on the strategy and just do volume. Outflow. Now, something I didn't talk about, which I might talk about in the next podcast, I have to decide if I have enough content to do that, is how do you do this quickly? You do this quickly with a buyer's list. So if you've got a few hundred to 500 people on a buyer's list after you sell 3 or 4 or 5 houses, because the system does that, it collects all their data. Now you just send out emails. Hey, I have this new house, and you have 500 people that are going to get your email, and you give them with what we call VIP status, very important person status, which means when you get a property for 5 days or 10 days, you don't put it on the market. You just promote it to your list and tell them, I'm putting it on the market in 5 days. Now's your chance. Get your ass out there and look at it before I put it on the market and save yourself some money. And people go, look. Now when you're talking to your seller, well, I have a buyer's list of 330 names, 300 names, 3,000 names. Because the more you put houses on the market, the more you acquire identities. I think we're going to talk about that in podcast number 418, like how to build a buyer's list and what to do.
That sounds good.
Yeah. Okay.
And how that benefits the realtors even, huh?
Yeah.
Because they don't have lists like that.
Isn't that the stupidest thing in the world?
I have lists like that. I give music lessons. I got 5 boxes.
I'm not going to go on that rant where the hour went 13 minutes over. It's the stupidest thing in the world.
Goodbye.
I don't understand why a realtor wouldn't do that. All right. So thank you very much for listening to us today. Hopefully some light bulbs went on. Hopefully you're tracking with me. I hope you make a shit ton of money. Flourish and prosper like never before. And make sure you leave us a review. Make sure you give us a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to us. And make sure you return. Chris says, great episode, guys. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
He's a avid listener. Over and out. We'll talk to you on podcast number 418. Have a good week.